Chapter 5. Danica's chapter. Ugh, why is no one outside anymore? Just because the Fire Nation is kidnapping us does not mean we can have fun anymore, Danica said to her best friends. Lucy whipped her blonde hair that now changes to light brown, matching her eyes. We should just find someone to mess with, then all will be great in the world, Lucy said with a wistful tone. As she looked at Danica blinking her emerald green eyes, the sun seemed to reflect perfectly on her rainbow hair. I'm up for it as long as we mess with girls first. Maybe we can barge into their rooms, Derek said with a mischievous glint in his eyes that are as black as a void of darkness. The 18-year-old boy turned his back and started to kiss the air as if someone was there. Candy saw this and made a gagging sound, then said, "Grow up, kid." You shouldn't be talking, Candy. Look at you. You're 27 with sparkly red hair and hanging with kids trying to start trouble, Zhang said, defending his friend as he braced himself in case of a fight. Guys, can you shut up? I think I see someone coming out of their house, Lee said in a rushed and annoyed tone. All 6 of the friends ducked behind a bush to the right of them and spotted who Lee was talking about. It was a girl with green and brown hair like filthy water, but for some reason it looked amazing on her. They watched her as she sat down by the pond in front of them. The girl looked around as if she were looking for someone, but found nothing. Let's go. This could be fun, Danica said with a sudden burst of excitement. She started to get up, but Lucy caught her arm with a steel grip that Danica didn't know a 14-year-old could have. Danica was mad at this because she was 14, yet not as strong as Lucy. Wait, Dan, I know this will be fun, but I thought we were going to try to do good and not be troublemakers anymore, Lucy said with a sad tone. Yeah, Lucy is right. We could ruin your dad's reputation. He is the king, after all, Lee said, matter of fact. Well, I am going, and if you want to stay in the shadows for the rest of your life, fine, Danica said in a loud whisper as she got up and went to the girl. Her friends followed behind her with uncertain steps. When Danica was right behind the girl turned around and kicked Danica in the face. Immediately, Danica fell to the ground, but she got back up and readied herself for a fight as her friends did the same. Before you try to sneak in on me, you should know that I have immense hearing. Also, I can fight, so I am going to give y'all 5 seconds to leave, the girl said with a country accent. You're hot, but probably not my type, Derek said without thinking. Then his cheeks turned a vibrant shade of red. Who is immature now, when you're the one rating her when she just pushed Danny down, Candy said with obvious sarcasm. Are y'all going, or do I need to kick your butts? The girl said with excitement. No, I think we're going to stay for a while, unless you want to try to fight us all. By the way, if you want to fight, I am up for it, Danica said with authority and menace in her voice. Who are you? The girl said while balling her hands up in a fist. Who am I? Who are we? No, I want to know who you are. I don't care about your little squad that for no reason wants to pick on people. Well, since I am polite, I won't beat you up. That doesn't mean I don't want to know who you are. Tell me or I will pounce, Danica said, edging the girl on. Whatever. I don't really care. My name is Isabella, and I am from the Earth Nation. Now, who are you? If you're really from the Earth Nation, then you should know who we are. But I will tell you anyways. We don't have a name yet, but I am Danica. This is Zhang, Derek, Candy, Lucy, and little Lee. Also, just because Lee looks small, this 6-year-old is smarter than anyone else. Are you the famous Danica? The one that always finds a way to make her royal life terrible? Isabella said while rolling her eyes. That's her. I mean, no it's not, Zhang said as Danica gave him a look that meant shut up. We don't have time for this. You're getting on my nerves. I hope that we don't hurt you too much. At that last word, Danica's eyes turned a deep shade of green, and then she shot her hand forward. The ground that Isabella was standing on shot in the air. Her friends got the hint, and they all surrounded the girl and made a circle of stone columns that encased her. What now, Danica? Huh? Are you going to try to kill me? Or do I get the pleasure of torture? Isabella said in an annoyed tone. Before Danica or her friends were able to answer, Isabella shot her hand out and broke the cage of stone that she was surrounded in. Once she was out, she closed her eyes and surrounded Danica and her friends all in stone. Then she ran, kicking dirt up behind her. Everything happened in less than 5 seconds. What just happened? Derek said, trying to make the stone go back into the ground. I don't know, but I don't think we can get out, Candy said, sighing and sitting on the dirt underneath. Everyone else did the same, except for Danica, who was swearing as she yelled after the girl. Chapter 6. And that's where we're going to stop here. If you guys want to hear more of Danica's chapter, well, keep listening. Chapter 8. Danica's second chapter. Now what, amazing leader? Candy said as soon as Danica stopped yelling. If I knew, don't you think I would tell you? Danica said, spitting on the ground. Have any ideas, Lee? Drake asked, looking over to the small boy. Lee stared at his friend in deep thought. The little boy started to pace around in his cage as his blonde army hair cast a shadow over his pale green eyes. If my calculations are right, then the dirt cage has somehow created a magnetic energy that has emitted into the air within a 50-foot distance. So we need some way to break the magnetic energy surrounding us, Lee said, still pacing around the room. Talk to us, Lee. Okay. Our powers combined should destroy the magnetic energy because of the nucleic. Get to the point, Drake said, cutting Lee off. Alright, on the count of 3, we need to imagine the walls around us falling. Once I'm out, I can cut off the energy around us. But once I do that, I will probably be knocked out, Lee said in a thoughtful tone. We can't have you knocked out, Lee, Danica said. Don't worry, I will only be knocked out for a few minutes. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. When he said 3, the ground shook, and the walls around Lee fell to the ground. Lee started to stumble around, but he stabilized himself. The walls around his friends started to fall one by one. When Danica was free, she tried to run over to Lee, but the magnetic energy shocked her, and she fell to the ground. No! Why did you move? Ugh! The energy is not completely gone yet, Lee said, out of breath from all the power he just used. Lee, get us out of here before my hair gets messed up, Derek said. Okay. Lee closed his eyes and started to move forward. As he began to walk forward, every 5 steps, he crossed his hands. Lee, what are you doing? Candy asked, ready to spring after him. I need to concentrate on the force around me to separate the atoms. If I separate the atoms, the force will enter me instead. Then I will be able to subside the power as long as I am dry. It will only work for me since I am young because I have less body percent of water, Lee said, still walking forward and crossing his hands. Danica started to get up from the ground. When she got up, her eyes began to grow wide. She looked around and saw the pound of what was right beside her, with Lee in front and the mountains behind her. The palace was only a couple miles to the right of her. Danica staggered back and screamed. The scream was ear-piercing. Shriek, and Lee opened his eyes and turned to Danica. That's when it happened. Lee fell to the ground, withering in pain. Lucy, Candy, Derek, and Zane looked in front of Lee. Then they saw her. Isabella was back, but she wasn't alone. This time, there were 5 full-grown men with her. Each man and Isabella had emerald green armor on. It was lined with diamonds. Their shield was the finest steel that money could buy. Each person carried a blood sword, red-green at the tip, but red was the rest. Where's the princess? The tallest man said. Who are you? Zhang asked, fearful of moving, but also very fearful of not moving. I'm the royal guard of the kingdom. Isabella told me that a group of strange people were with the princess. The guard gestured to Isabella without looking at her. We are not strange people, and the princess is no longer here, Candy said, inching towards Danica's body. Luckily, she was face first in the dirt, and her body was limp. She just looked like a dead body. Where is she? Isabella said in a voice close to hysteria. You guys are not guards, are you? Drake said, looking the men over and putting his hands out into a fighting position. I thought that would take you longer. I thought that would take longer for you to figure out. Good thing we can move and you can't. The tallest guard said. The friends didn't even have time to react. The guards and Isabella moved to a speed that was considered impossible. Isabella went straight for Danica, but before she could strike, Candy pounced on her back. They tumbled to the ground as chaos erupted around them. Isabella tried to free herself from Candy's strong grip, but before she could, Candy punched her in the head. Isabella's head slammed into the rocky ground, and she heard a soft thud. Isabella flipped over in a fast motion and suddenly had Candy back on the ground. She was holding both of Candy's hand on the ground, and she held her feet with her legs. Isabella was peering over her with a deep wound in her head that was bleeding fast. You can't win every battle, now can you? Isabella said, lifting her hand and punching Candy in the stomach. Candy started to struggle, but Isabella was too strong. Don't worry, I'll let you go soon. With that, Isabella reached into her pocket, making the ground come forth and hold down Candy's hand, as if she were chained to the ground. Isabella cut Candy's cheek, making a deep gash to the skin. Candy shrieked. Derek saw this, but before he could run over to her and help, the man he was fighting kicked him onto the ground. Almost immediately, Derek put his hands into the dirt. He started to rise up on a pillar of stone. He kicked his leg out, connecting it to the man's forehead. The man fell to the ground stunned. Zhang saw what was happening and dodged his attacker's swing. Then he jumped. When he landed on the ground, it shook beneath the attacker, and he started to sink as if in quicksand. Zhang rushed over to Derek's attacker, but Derek waved him away and pointed to Candy. Zhang started to run the opposite way. He was now 30 feet away from Candy. Once he reached 40 feet in the opposite direction, he ran up what seemed an invisible wall. Once he was halfway up the wall, he did a backwards karate kick. Fire ants erupted out of his foot in one big ball of ants. The ants landed on Isabella's back as Zhang went back to the ground. Isabella yelled as the ants started to crawl all over her body. Lucy, who had knocked out the tallest man, came rushing over to Candy. She pulled her away. Isabella stood up. She was almost completely covered by ants. They started to enter the wound in her head, and she started to lose consciousness. This is not over, Isabella said right before she threw a knife. It flew through the air and hit Danica's unconscious body, piercing her heart, opening her chest, and spilling out blood. And that's Danica's chapters. Yes, guys, I know I did stutter at some points, and I'm sorry for that, but I hope you enjoyed Danica's chapters.